Hi guys, welcome back
Hi.
to Zen Ascension. We've had a right fuck on, haven't we? Trying to
I
get.
know.
Oh, here's somebody bloody calling me now. Oh,
Oh
can't
God.
talk. Can't talk to you at the minute. I'm sorry. Right, there we go. So, dear, my mother.
It's Mercury retrograde, isn't it? It's throwing it out. Boom.
Ah, boom. Hey, there's going to be some bombs today, I'm sure.
I know.
Right. So, our topic for today is to do with the awakening, to do with spiritual awakening. It's to do with the signs from an awakening, and also to do with the people that don't want to or can't see the signs and don't know what they are, and how they deal with, I suppose, just being blinded and blinkered from it,
Yeah.
not knowing what it is. Because I think for the majority of people, when they do start going on awakening and start to see things, they are in a place of like total confusion. I know I was, I'm sure you were as well, as to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what was going on. And I know, like, you've talked about your awakening on lots of your videos, and you did it on your Q&A video as well, with regards
Mhm.
to when you were in the States. And when I was watching that video yesterday, I think it was, of your Q&A session, and you were in Central Park, I think it was.
Mhm.
And it's funny because I was in a park as well. It wasn't Central Park, but it was the park near me, and I was walking the dog. And I just started having this sort of massive panic attack, and I didn't have a clue what was going on. And I mean, I was already diagnosed as having depression and anxiety, and then there was this panic attack started, and I was just like, what the? And I thought I was going to die. I thought I was having a heart attack, or I was just like, what is this? What is going on? And I just thought, I just need to be back home.
Mhm.
And just rushed back home. And then, because of where I was and because of the medication I was just thinking, well, I need to go and see a doctor about this and see. So they prescribed me more more pills on top of the ones I was already taking. And they said, oh yeah, you've had like an anxiety attack. But what, at that stage of my life, I was just like, I didn't think about looking for the root cause of what it is, and just, just kept popping the pills and just covering it
Mhm.
up, and making me like a zombie, because that's what you think is, I suppose, the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you trust in in medication, you trust in doctors. They've been to university and learned all this stuff, and they know exactly what you need. Then you go on to the path of healing and awakening and spirituality, and you actually discover that a lot of it is nonsense, and they haven't got a clue.
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and and
Yeah.
several visits later to GPs and to doctors, they didn't know um, what was going on. They didn't know what was wrong with my body. They didn't know what physical symptoms, what physical ailments they were, and why I was going through it, and just prescribed stuff. Because the more they prescribe you, the more it feeds the system. So you're in this kind of
Yeah.
never-ending circle of um, trying to heal yourself, but
But it
it's not.
keeps you there, doesn't it? It
It
keeps you
keeps you in a
locked
loop,
in
yeah.
and anchored into it.
And you're trapped, and the more you're trapped and anchored into the system, whatever element of it may be, whether it's within the health system, whether it's within property, whether it's within your work, whether it's within your mortgage, your life, everything. The system is so clever that it keeps you encapsulated in that bubble. And when you start popping out of the bubble, then you see above it, and it's very much like, I don't know if you've seen the films, the Hunger Games films. Have you ever
Yeah. Do you
seen
know I
them?
struggle with that? I've read the books,
Yeah.
and I think, is it three books? I think I've read the first two.
Mm,
And I remember, well, this was years ago, this, and I remember thinking this could actually happen.
mm,
Honestly, and I couldn't read any more of it.
yeah.
It's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
then the films came out, and I just said, I can't watch it. I said, this could actually happen. And
Mm,
I think we're in that kind of an energy now. Not as dark as it gets there,
mm,
but yeah, the whole thing about teams and survival, and
yeah.
some
Yeah.
the outside forces watching in at these two vulnerable people that are
Yeah.
it's just crazy.
Yeah. And I
Um,
mean, like, an element of that, like when I was watching it, I was just thinking, this is how it's always been. It's always been
yeah,
like this. But
yeah,
until you start to see beyond the veil from where you are, from where you've been indoctrinated to live within. You don't actually understand or have any concept of it. But when you do you start to think, one, you're probably going mad. Two, other people move away from you because they think you're going mad. And it takes a long time to sort of ground yourself and reground that energy of what you're going through. And yeah, I suppose a lot of people, because of the way the system works as well, if people move away from them or leave them alone because they think Bert's gone a bit loopy or whatever, they will take that as a bad sign, a bad omen. And it is really interesting how that element of the system works, and everyone thinks that we need to have connection all the time with people rather than being alone. Alone time is kind of looked at as a negative thing, but I don't think it is as much now, is it?
No, people struggle. Some people still struggle with that concept of downtime, and I think that's why a lot of the lockdowns people struggled with it, because people just can't sit with themselves, can they? They just can't be silent, and it's odd. I mean, going back to the tablets, I think this is important. I went on antidepressants, and then the panic attacks still kept coming, and then I thought, I'm going to go and I'll go and get some tablets for panic attacks so I can solve depression and I can solve the panic attacks. So I took these second tablets on top of the antidepressants for panic attacks, and I started with these really bad ones, like what I call metalhead, where I couldn't even focus, and it was just like boom, 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 panic attack after panic attack, like honestly off the scale. And I went and I looked at the back of the side effects, and one of the main side effects was panic attacks.
Yeah.
Or a drug that's meant to stop panic attacks.
Yeah.
Because panic attacks can be a sign that there's something shifting, or that there's something needing changing, or that you're needing help with something, or that there's something around that we need to step back from and go home.
Yeah.
And by trying to get drugs to press it down, antidepressants is a difficult one, because sometimes they're necessary just to calm somebody down, which worked for me. And then I came off of them gradually. But long term, these very important things like depression and sadness and tears and anxiety let us know there's something wrong.
Yeah, there's
it's
something
our body's way of releasing it, and then we just put bang tablets on top of that, and it's like
it's like throwing a blanket over it, isn't it? And if you can't see it, then it's not there. But in actual fact, you need to take that blanket off to expose it, to see what it is. It's like going into a messy room and just throwing a cover over it all and just think, oh, I'll deal with that later. But in actual fact, what you need to do is pull that sheet off, that rug off, and look at it and expose it for what it is and sort it out over time. It's not like sort it out there and then, but it's like, and it is like a messy room, because the mind becomes like a messy place, and you have to start to compartmentalize elements of your life of what makes you trigger, what sets you off. And it's those things that set you off that you need to look at, expose, deal with, and heal from.
And I think people can struggle with having to just do that and make those, because when that starts coming up, there's going to be choices to make. It could be that you've got to leave your job. It could be that you've got to leave the house where you live in. It could be that you've got to leave your family. It could be that you've got to leave your partner if you're in an abusive relationship. And I actually genuinely think that sometimes people get comfortable.
They get used to it. They get
I mean, I used to work in a place where people were so comfortable, they hated it. It was horrible. Institution, toxic, and yet they were comfortable there. They couldn't even imagine leaving. And vast majority were antidepressants as well, vast majority. In fact, it was laughed about. It was seen as like, you're a proper member of staff, now you're on the tablets. We were all just rattling about everywhere, it was just crazy.
So how do you think people would deal with it? Like, if people generally want to face it and go through the awakening process and not turn their back from it, how would people approach it and deal with it. And I mean, obviously there's people like us, and there's our channels, and there's lots of other people's channels out there that help with awakening. But how do you think people would like deal with it? I mean, I know how I dealt with it, and you know how you deal with it. But for anyone that's out there that's kind of just just a Joe Blogs, just an everyday person that would never think we were all that. We've all been that. I would never, 10, 15, 20, well, 20 years ago, I've been doing it for, doing it for that long now, but like 20 years ago, I would never ever think that I would be the person that would be sat meditating with crystals and sending Reiki to people in America and around the world and playing with singing bowls. But here I am, absolutely loving every aspect of it, because I think that there's a time where you do start to just step out of your what is classed as the normal. And some people as well, I suppose, from a young age, they probably don't feel normal. They probably feel different. And it can be a bit of a cliche where people are growing up and they're just like, I always felt different to somebody else. But that's because for me, from what I've experienced and even people that I follow and listen to, it's because they have a calling in life. There's something that they need to do, rather than just fit in with the crowd of everybody else.
Yeah. I think healing needs to be normalized. In schools, in doctors, in families, in communities. I think holistic healing, and I think therapy as well, because I think therapy is important. I really, because that was one of my first to go to was therapy. And it worked. Once I spent a year with 3 different counsellors, covering 3 different areas. But I think it needs to be, and I think it is becoming more normal, whereas 5, 10, 15, 20, plus years ago it wasn't. But I think it needs to become the norm. And trying to get this stuff out there is quite difficult. I mean, I said this morning, I live in an area where, the people that surround me in these houses, they're working their balls off to keep these houses going and to keep the 4-bedroom, to get the 4-bedroom put in, to get the 5th bedroom put in, to get the 4th car. Honestly, it's crazy. And it's just not taken off. And I was so loud about Reiki, I was so loud about healing. And they just fall on deaf ears, because people just, I think as well, people don't want to look at themselves, because there's an element of a big element of shadow that comes up. And I think people like to be victims. I think we've all relished that, drinking the extra bottle of wine, crying, the attention, and it becomes where I think people start to, because it's like a form of attention that comes in. And I think you can get people do get addicted to that. They do get addicted to that. And I think it's having to just really face yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
And it takes time.
I mean, what would be, I mean, I don't think that there probably is there probably is like a telltale sign, but if anyone was going through and starting an awakening journey and didn't know what it would be, I mean, for me, I would say that there would be some form of deep trauma or mental health issue or something like that that would surface, because and I think mental health is like a big thing for a lot of people. And I'm not like talking about just the people that they get stressed or whatever, but the actual mental health that does kind of, it paralyzes your life. And a lot of those people really they are under the, I suppose, the influence of medication so heavily that they can't see beyond that, because I know from my experience of taking the medication, it made me just very much like a zombie. I was very emotionless, and I was just sort of like just blankly just went through life and just thinking, this is just like the way I'll have to live. But then there does come a time where something comes like kind of knocking at the door to make you realize and see and think that there's something else, and things started popping into my life just at the precise moment. But then for those people that don't want to accept that, you know, or don't want to see it, or don't see the signs as well, because that was something that I'd messaged you about. It's like, what if these signs come along for people? Like for me, a friend just randomly phoned me up, and then eventually I found out that he was really interested in meditation, and I started to do meditation with him, and I found that really, really benefited my mental health. But for other people, you know, those people might be there and reach out to them, but they just say, oh no, you're all right, I'm not bothered.
Yeah.
What would they do?
I think it's about taking your time and working through what's best for you to I think that the first hurdle is normalizing it. And to fall in love with that aspect of yourself, fall in love with the aspect of you that is traumatized, fall in love with the aspect of you that wants to step away. And self-love and self-value, all of a sudden realizing that you are a powerful being, that you are a powerful person, and making the necessary, asking yourself what would make you happy, because it's a vast subject anyway, because everybody's experience is going to be different. Everybody is going to go through it differently. And I don't ever think there's just one boom moment. There can be one boom moment, but surrounding that one boom moment is going to be all
Like
the other
ripples,
stuff
isn't it?
with it.
Yeah.
The illness, the disease, the trauma, the stress, the anxiety, the disheartenment, the up and down the roller coaster. And then it's like, I think the more people that awaken and own it and share their story, the more it will ripple out.
Yeah. And it enters people's consciousness easier, doesn't it? Because more people are aware of it, more people are talking about it, more people are spreading the word about it, more people are going onto YouTube and talking about their experiences with regards to, you know, healing and coming into contact with whatever energy they might want to work with. And yeah, I mean, it's such a difficult concept to try and explain to people about, like, an awakening or just seeing something differently from everybody else. But you know, it's like, for me, I mean, so I was just thinking about this morning about with regards to our video and what we're going to talk about. But sometimes it can be a bit of a curse, because because you do see everything in every situation, and then you start to process it with your third eye. You process it with the pineal gland, and the pineal gland just going boom, 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 and everything's like you're working things out in your mind, and you're getting downloads and information and different viewpoints, and putting your own thoughts, and your own higher self starts potting things in as well. So you have so many elements of one subject that are popping in, and then that processes it and gives you, like, sort of a bigger picture of that situation, of whatever you might be in. So it can be, I suppose, a little bit of a curse for some people, because many will think that they're starting to become anxious again. They're starting to have anxiety because they're overthinking. But in actual fact, it's the downloads and it's the processing of what we have to go through to normalize what we're seeing and what we're experiencing. I don't know.
And I think as well, again, coming back to the panic attacks, it's just coming to my mind now that, say, if I tomorrow decided to go back and work in my old place of work, so I got up tomorrow, you can bet that the whole process, I'd become ill, I'd have IBS again, I'd become anxious, I'd become angry, all on the way to that workplace, and I'd go in there and I'd have panic attacks. So as well, it's that understanding that having the panic attack isn't bad, it's the body's way of telling you something. Either there's something internal that we're shifting through, or the environment that we're in is toxic for us. If every time you go near your partner that is abusing you and you have a panic attack, that's your body's red light system going, watch. Every time you go into that toxic workplace, if you're having a panic attack, that's your body's, it's not your body punishing you. It's not because we're going mad. It's your body's way of giving, because panic is fight or flight, isn't it? Back in the olden days, you got the adrenaline rush to run, didn't we? That's what they say panic attacks is. You know, when we used to have to hunt for food, we got the adrenaline rush in order to run.
Yeah.
But we get the adrenaline that the body hasn't adapted itself to know that there's not a big lion in front of you going to bite your head off. It's just your boss.
Yeah.
So we think, I'm ill, I'm ill, I'm ill. But that adrenaline is telling you to run. It's telling you to go.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of the trauma and a lot of physical issues come from, that because you're storing all this adrenaline. You know, your adrenal glands are doing what they need to do and process these hormones that give you this fight or flight response, but then you're holding it in and you're capping it and you're putting a lid on that emotion or that energy that needs to be released. You need to let something out, whether it's scream, shout, run, whatever, to let that cap just blow. But if you put a lid on it and contain it, your body can only take so much. And it's funny that I watched on a series on Netflix, it's a series I've watched a few times. It's called Surviving Death, and I think it's like maybe the fourth episode. There's 6 episodes in the series, maybe the third, fourth, something like that. But there's a bloke, and he's got the shakes, he's got the jitters, his whole body's shaking, and he's like really, really red, and he can't sleep, he can't settle, and he goes to see this. She's like a medium, but she's a healer, and she sort of channels this energy of this doctor who works on the energy with it. So it's pretty much like, it's a bit like Reiki or something like that. And she's talking about how she's moving through this energy, and she's and this spirit is saying that you have all this, you've trapped all this energy within you, and it's your adrenal glands, and it's created this physical thing that's manifested. And after that one visit of going to see him, you saw him walk out. He wasn't shaking. There was no shakes. His facial color had gone quite normal, and before he went in, he could hardly speak. He was that sort of jittery and whatever, and he couldn't pronounce his words. He came out and he was just talking calmly, just talking normally, like we are. But before, you see him, and you're just like, wow, this, But I mean, I'm not saying that with Reiki that we channel like a spirit energy or anything like that. That's not what it's about. But obviously, if you're in that channeling mediumistic approach of things, you can do that, and there is that element of healing within that. But the point that I'm making is about this buildup of this adrenaline that's in that bloke's body that hasn't been released. He hasn't gone through the process of releasing it and just held on to it. And if he hadn't done that and gone there, how much further down the line before he thinks, I need to do something about this, because modern medication didn't do anything for him. It didn't help.
No. It's a process, isn't it? And it's finding what works for you as well. And I think as well, realizing that, I think the reason why it takes time, because we've been in such a way for so long, that to then realize just how much power we've got with job, with love, with finances, with home. We have got so much more power than we're led to believe.
Yeah.
So then we've got to start working through relationships, and you may find you go through some bad relationships, and you may find you go through some money issues, and you may find you go through family issues, and you may find you go through home issues, until you've got to go back and relearn it all. So you've got to go through all those traumas to come out and go, actually, I can do this. And I think as well, because on your healing journey, it is quite normal to still get days where you're having panic attacks. And I think it's almost like everything that we push down, this is what comes up.
Yes.
So if you've had 1,000 potential panic attacks that we've pushed down, then 1,000 potential panic attacks have got to come back up.
They've got to come
And
back
the only
up.
way
Yeah.
they can come back up is by a panic attack.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that's another thing when people on the healing journey, not everybody, but sometimes you'll come across something. I actually feel worse now than I did before I started.
Yeah.
There's so much.
Yeah, so many layers, and it's like we've talked about before, on our own channels and on this channel. It's this peeling back these layers of this onion. It's not always a pretty thing. It's not always perfect. It's not always where you just wake up and you feel amazing. And some of the healing sessions you go through, you'll start to cry. You'll start to get feelings of this. You might get pain. You might get palpitations or whatever, and you can't explain it. You don't know what's going on. But like you say, it's all these processes that your body, your physical body, needs to go through to release. And it's the same with things like ascension symptoms and, you
Yeah.
know, chakra upgrades, energy upgrades, whatever you might go through. The energy can upgrade and level up so fast, and when you get these downloads and light codes and information that comes in to level you up onto your next level of ascension and going into a different level of vibration. But the physical body needs to erupt all this stuff and let it go. And it really is fascinating. And yeah, I mean, like, but we're all still going through it. We're all going through the processes. But I think when you start going down a path of healing and awakening, you actually start to see the reasons behind it and the reasons why you are going through this stuff and why you are experiencing it. Whereas before, you just think, oh, I'm having a heart attack, or I'm having palpitations, or I need to take something for that, I need to take something for that, I need to take something for that. But in actual fact, it's all this trauma and all this release that you're going through that you need to let out and expose.
Yeah. I'll give you an example that I think might be helpful. We went on honeymoons, and one of the places we went to was Nova Scotia. So through the night we sailed into Nova Scotia, into the cruise terminal, and Nova Scotia is where the Titanic graveyard is. So I wake up that morning and we're in the terminal, and I said to Gary, I said, God, I feel really anxious. I said, I feel like I used to do when I was at that place, you know, working at that place. And I was like on bed thinking, I don't know what this is. I said, this feels real. I just feel anxious. So I got up, go for breakfast, still felt anxious, went up on deck, still felt anxious, went for fresh air, still felt anxious. We said, let's try and do the bus tour. So we got off the bus tour, went through the terminal. My heart was pounding. And I said, there's something not right with where we are. I said, this just doesn't feel right. And I got on the bus and my mouth was dry. And I was like, this is weird. But I kind of settled down a bit. And then they went on the tour, and the bus tour says that when the survivors of the Titanic and when the dead bodies of the Titanic were delivered, they went into the marina, the place where our cruise ship had come in, and there's different bays, and I think we were in Bay 21, and he says they sailed into Bay 21 with the dead bodies, and in the place where we walked through to get onto the coach, that's where all the bodies would have been laid out. And I remember on the bus, and I was just sweating, and I just thought, oh, that's why. And literally the anxiety went. It wasn't my own stuff. It was I was in a place that had so much dark history, where body after body after body of the people that had died on Titanic were like literally there where I was sleeping, where I woke up, where I had breakfast, where I walked through to get onto that ship. And once I'd realised that, I was like, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah. It's that residual energy, isn't it? It's been left there. And like we've talked about in other videos, you know, it's like when you're moving to a home or whatever property you might buy, there's always something that's within the land or within the building, the property, and sometimes you can feel it. Sometimes it's heavy, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's just a gentle, kind, loving energy that's overseeing the house. But like with that, you know, you're going through that process. For a lot of people, it would be like, I mean, even you know, you questioned it, you didn't know what it was, but oh, here's our warning. Look, here it is, 10 minutes.
You're joking.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and I think sometimes as well with the awakening, you do get a lot of that. I mean, I know I did. Got a lot of things that were trying to, you know, give me signs, signals, communication or whatever, and I was just like, you know, freaking the shit out because I didn't have a clue what was going on, and it was a time where I was just like thinking, yeah, I'm going crazy because of everything that I was going through. But in actual fact, you get to a place where you realize, right, okay, that's what's happening, and you start delving down different pathways, and I think even though we're talking about people that might not want to realize what's going on and see the signs and accept them and move down that path, I personally think it is inevitable and people will go down that path anyway. As much as they might initially think, oh, no, I haven't got time for that. I'm too busy doing this. I've got work. I'm getting married or whatever. And in whatever situation it might be within the shadow of the matrix, when they get through to a certain point, there'll be a little like glimmer of interest in something, and that is the beginning of that journey of seeing more. And I think with everyone on the planet will and have to go through this process. So hopefully YouTube exists forever, our channel exists forever, and people can can come back to this information to think, look at that batty pair, what are they on about? Oh, actually, yeah, that's something I'm going through. I understand that now.
Yeah, I think everyone is going through it and they don't even realize it. I think everyone is going through it, they don't realize it.
Yeah.
Because, and as well, don't compare yourself to others. Don't compare what you're going through to somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think when the panic attacks come in, learn to tune into the body. Is this something to do with the land and the place? Is this something I'm purging? Is there an actual issue going on? Am I in a toxic environment? That's why you're having a panic attack. Is it somebody else that's come in that's suffering that you're tuning into? And rather than running from the panic attacks and crying and going into fear like we do, is to befriend them in a healthy way.
Yeah. Talk to it,
see
face it, speak to it. Yeah. I know I've mentioned before, you know, for me, like full moons and things like that is a big issue for me. Although I must say recently, so I don't know if it's because I've leveled up or something, but the last sort of new moon, full moon, and I know there's another full moon coming up soon, but I've actually been quite okay. And it's not affected me too much. The only thing that did affect me with the new moon, which was a positive thing, was to have like a full, like sort of spring clean, declutter, move things around, chuck things out, get my hair cut, shave with me, you know, and it was it was all positive, good stuff, and it was because it's all new moon energy coming in to shift off the old stuff that you sometimes you hang on to. So it's and people need to be aware of that as well, that they can tune into these energies that might be going on at a time around the planet.
It's going to be an experience. It's going to be an experience, I think.
Yeah, definitely for so many, and a lot of people might think, oh, I don't want to go through any of that. I don't want to have to deal with all that, but you will, you know, you will have to, and there will come a time where you'll have to deal with it, whether they like it or not. And you know, if they don't deal with it, they come back and live it all again, and then they have to see it all and live it through it all again. Why?
It's all good fun. I want to come back though. Do you? I want to come back.
Yeah. I
don't know how this works. Just to disappear. I'm coming back.
Yeah, I'll probably come back.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'll have to. So I wonder what state the world will be in then. I wonder when do we go back to an older time or the new Earth, or oh wow, yeah, or it might not even be Earth. It might be somewhere else. It might be another dimension.
Yeah.
Right, we're up to 5 minutes on here. So shall we stop here and reconvene and come back in part 2?
Yeah, we'll do that then.
Right, okie dokie. See you soon.
Bye.